And welcome back for another episode. So let's have a quick look at what's going on. In terms of money, we are not doing all that great. We did get a decent bit of income from our trade deal with the French, but it's not enough to save our economy. Although it did essentially almost halve the debt that we have right now, so it's not that bad. And of course, in terms of research, we're still doing the same stuff as the end of the previous episodes. I'm not going to go through all of that. And then we haven't actually started any new colonies yet. Well, I mean, other than the fact that we do have the colony in Caribbean, I believe we have set up something to actually start inhabiting it now. Of course, it requires a lot of infrastructure there, so it's going to be a bit of a hindrance. But as soon as we start getting the infrastructure there, we have started building it in Havana, by the way, so that is mostly about getting the infrastructure there, and then we can start getting some population there. And then we can start mining there, because it does produce, for example, iron and wood, tar, and then glass and gunpowder and wood at a decent rate, so total accessibility is free. So one mine is going to be producing 3 times the racial mine production. Not bad, I'd say. And it's going to be close enough to Port Royal, so we can then, especially if we can get some deep space tracking stations here, at least 1 or 2, then we can maybe pay a little bit of attention on what's going on in there. Now, we don't have any new news on the diplomatic front, but what we do have news is, well, first of all, we are moving in more ships towards Caribbean, but basically, the ships that we have here, we do have some ships there, but that's going to take a while before they reach here. Basically have about 2 months before we are going to be sailing up north towards Philadelphia with the French. And then we do have some fleets that are moving. Let's actually have a quick look at... Right, so basically what we have in mind is we'll be bringing in some ships from Mediterranean. They'll be making a show near Lisbon. Going close enough that the enemy will spot them, but far enough that they should not be able to track us for too long. And basically what we'll go is, well, we'll refuel in Cadiz. Then we're going to go to the waypoint 1, then waypoint 2, and then we're going to turn hard left to the North Atlantic, and then we're going to go to Canary Islands, refuel there, and then go towards Caribbean. Now, of course, the ships that are going to be arriving in Havana after we've set sail towards the raid will then be used against Port Royal again. But essentially our Mediterranean and South American holdings and all that, they will be on as little ships guarding as possible. It is, of course, a bit risky, but I think it will pay off. I mean, if we keep our doom stack essentially together, of course maintaining is going to be a bit difficult, but going into Philadelphia we hope to destroy the shipyards there with the French, crippling any operations that the British could do on the western side of the Atlantic. Now what we could of course do is raid Lisbon as well, but we have no interest in doing that right now. Our main goal is getting the colonies from Britain and essentially cutting Britain in size quite significantly. But that is about it for the start of this episode, so I'll see you in a few moments. One of our civilian freighters got sunk in Bay of Biscay. Now we don't know who exactly did this, but what we can see is that it was close to North Sea, so it's probably either the British or the Dutch, the responsible party for this. But losing that freighter was not great, to say the least. It was one of the 2 freighters for this particular shipping line. The other one has a freighter and 2 colony ships, but losing essentially 1/6 of our income from these companies anyway. Now luckily they do have a decent bit of wealth, so they might be building a new ship soon, and I certainly hope so. But we may need to restrict the North Sea from any civilian shipping for the time being. We received news about the wreckage indicating the British are behind this. Only a Brit would stoop so low to kill innocent traders, and dozens of sailors are dead because of their despicable brutality. Husbands, fathers and sons that shall never return home. We shall see to it that the Royal Navy will be punished for their crimes against humanity. We have completed research on the active ground sensor strength 12, so now we're getting the EM sensor sensitivity 6, which will essentially make our optics a lot better in spotting the enemies, which will certainly help quite a bit in the open seas. Of course, during battle is probably not going to be much of a difference. Not yet anyway, but I'm sure that spotting the enemy will help a long way. The ships from Bruges have now safely arrived in Ferrol. There's still, of course, a few ships keeping order in that colony, but majority of the fleet is now safely in our home territory. Our transatlantic colony fleet is currently being intercepted by a pirate fleet. This must be the British bribing them to raid us. We'll try to buy us some time by sailing back to Caribbean, and hopefully we can lose there, but if we can't, then we'll be losing 5 colony ships. While bad, we can still replace that, so it's not the end of the world, but it's nasty business. We spot another 3 enemy ships. The pirates have opened fire upon us. Almost all of the ships have now already taken some armor damage. No internal damage yet, but that is probably going to happen soon. There's only 1 ship that hasn't been hit yet. And at least on one of the ships there's multiple places where 1 good hit can already penetrate the armor. 2 of our ships have had the armor penetrated. One of them has already lost a cryogenic transport, cargo shuttle bay and a fuel storage. And the other one has only lost the cryogenic transport. However, the enemy is dangerously close. If their broadsides don't sink our ships, then they are likely to capture them by boarding. The enemy is doing huge damage. They destroyed both the mizzenmast and the mainmast from one of our ships, and is now only limping on with just foremast. One of the colony ships have broken apart after a sizable barrage from the enemy. Also, one of the enemy ships seems to be diverging towards the slowed down ship, and another one of the ships was demasted, so there's only 2 ships that are currently moving at full speed, and every ship has holes in their armor already. So, both of these 2 colony ships are currently being boarded. Hopefully we can still win those battles, but on the other hand, if they lose the battles, they'll probably sink the ships, so not sure which one's better. On the other hand, less things for the enemy is always better, I suppose. Now, unfortunately, also, yet another one of our ships has been demasted, and it did lose 2 of their masts, so that's not great. And the main enemy fleet here is right on top of them, so they basically have 100% hit chance. So that's also making life a little bit difficult there, and they'll do basically full damage whenever they hit. So at this point it's pretty safe to say that the colony fleet is lost. The day has come. The fleets are now heading off towards Philadelphia. Unfortunately, the reinforcement from Valparaiso are currently still undergoing overhaul for probably a few months, so they won't be able to participate in that. And the Barcelona reinforcements over here are in some desperate need of recuperation, so they will also stay behind in Havana for the time being. But the fleet heading towards Philadelphia is still rather sizable. It is about 34 ships. Combined with the French fleet, it's going to be quite sizable armada heading out there. The fleets are now gathering up in the American East Coast. We're still waiting for one more fleet, which is going to take about 10 days. So about the end of the month we'll have all the ships massed, and then we'll sail towards Philadelphia. We have completed a naval shipyard in Cadiz, and now we started building some research facilities there, which will hopefully allow us to research our things a little bit faster, because I have a feeling that we are in some degree a little bit behind in technology right now. Our combined fleets are now within spotting range of Philadelphia, and we can see that they have quite significant fleet in there. Of course, I'm pretty sure that our fleet is still larger, but this is going to be a big fight. Our ship will soon be able to fire upon the enemies. We'll first try to destroy the fleet, and then we'll destroy the fortifications. The enemy coastal fortifications have opened fire, but so far only 1 hit, and even that was barely a glancing hit. The first salvos have been fired. We did score a few more hits than they did, but it is still early battle, anything can happen. We've now reached a position where all of our ships can fire upon the enemy. We'll set up a line of fire and try to destroy as many ships as we can. we have already taken a fair bit of damage. On the French side there's been a bit more damage than on the Spanish side. Nothing major still, but there's certainly a lot more hits from the coastal fortifications now. On the Spanish side, a lot of ships have gotten a few hits, but nothing too major either. Now that we have our battle lines set, we have scored a lot more hits on them. Unfortunately, a lot of our ships have taken a decent bit of damage already, but our armors have not been penetrated yet. While we are dealing a lot of damage on the enemy, there's already few ships on our side that we are forced to retreat from the battle, because we do not want to lose too many ships in this fight, and the damage that they've taken is already some component damage. While we are still scoring more hits than the enemies are whenever we get our full broadside going, however, we've had to pull back a few more ships from the battle to avoid taking too much damage. Two of the ships that are now retreating got demasted, and thus will be going a little bit slower, but we are gathering up our fleets back where we left the support vessels there, and then we'll refuel there and then head back either to Tortuga, although we can't repair the ships in Tortuga, so they'll probably head to Quebec actually, and for the Spanish ships they will of course head back to Havana. Another half a dozen French ships have had to retreat from the battle due to damage, because repairing the ships is a lot faster and cheaper than building new ones. However, considering the damage that we've done on the enemy ships, they are bound to start sinking soon. A gunpowder storage has partially exploded on one of the French brigs, so we'll have to pull back another few ships. But luckily, we seem to have done a fair bit of damage on the enemy ships as well. So far, nothing has been sunk, but the amount of fire that we've been pouring on them is bound to have done a decent bit of damage, and we know that we've had some penetrative hits on at least 2 or 3 of the enemy ships. While we've had to pull back a lot of ships already during this battle, we have finally managed to get some penetrative hits on the enemy first rates. Another Spanish ship is about to retreat from the battle. Also, a lot of French ships have had their armor pierced. However, we will keep them in the fight just to make sure that we have enough firepower to sink the enemy ships. Both the Spanish and the French ships have started taking a significant amount of damage, but we do not pull back any more ships. Either we start losing the ships, or the enemy start losing the ships. If we start pulling back more of the ships, then they will have more firepower on than we do, and then at that point we will certainly lose the fight. So at this point, no more ships pull back. At last, one of the enemy ships has been sunk. Now, to be fair, we have taken a decent bit of damage on our side as well, but at this point, the enemy will start losing ships quite rapidly, I feel. Another 2 enemy ships have been destroyed, a first rate and a second rate, and for that we've lost 1/5 rate on our side. We have destroyed another 2 ships of the line from the enemy, and for that we've lost 1 Spanish frigate and 1 French frigate. We have lost yet another frigate, but we have sunk another 3 enemy ships of the line. We have lost a few more ships, however, all the enemy first rates have been sunk, and a significant portion of their second rates have also been sunk. So far, our side has lost 17 ships, plus probably around 20 ships that were damaged and pulled back from the battle. However, the enemy has lost nearly half of the total amount of ships there. So, even though we've taken very large losses already, the enemy has certainly taken more. Only 9 enemy ships remain, whereas we still have over 90 ships. So we outnumber the enemies 10 to 1. Unfortunately, they do still have their coastal fortifications. The last of the enemy ships has been sunk. Now the French Navy is still firing on the coastal fortifications, while the Spanish will fire upon the shipyards. Mostly because the Spanish don't have a vertical fire control ship here anymore, so it will be up to the French to destroy the coastal fortifications. Unfortunately, the British have been able to sink almost every brig on our fleet here now, and the vertical fire controls I think are on the 5th rate on the French side. So if they destroy that, we may have to pull back. And so, for all the fortifications on the shores of Philadelphia, shipyards are still there, but we will finish destroying them, and then we will regroup the fleets and divide them up a little bit. Unfortunately, we did lose around 30 ships total were sunk on our side, and not a single ship is undamaged at this point. So, although the enemy lost a lot more than we did, it is going to take a while to recover from this. Now that we won the Battle of Philadelphia, and we've had to do some emergency repairs for some of the ships, including one ship that was asked to name as Philadelphia after the battle, which is rather damaged. And the only things that were not damaged in the ship, actually, were a few of the crew quarters, so it's a bit of a miracle that the ship even survived. But now that one of the masts have been repaired, so we can actually start sailing with this fleet, we'll be sending it down south. They are rather low on rations, though they might not be able to do much about that. They might not be able to sail far. We have already sent down some support vessels to bring in some extra rations and that sort of stuff for the ships, so that they can actually make to Havana, which is our closest port of repair, although Havana does have a bit of a problem with some of the minerals, or resources rather, because they don't get any tar, gunpowder or bronze there. And especially the gunpowder and tar, and to some degree bronze, are things that we do require there, but we can get at least the tar and gunpowder here in Guantanamo Bay, so we've set up some of the transport ships to get some mines in here so we can get the minerals that we require. Of course, bronze is still going to be an issue. Now, of course, we could send the fleet to repair in Europe as well, but I think getting at least some overhaul, dropping the survivors that we picked up from our own ships. We didn't go ahead and pick up any of the British survivors. It would have slowed us down a quite significant amount. And as expected, our fleet has now run out of fuel, or at least some of the ships there have run out of fuel, so the fleet is currently stranded. We have, of course, as I stated before, sent in support vessels, but it will take some time before they reach here. It's actually going to take about 1.5 months. We completed research on better maintenance facilities, and now we started designing new spy classes for our ships. Only the 3 top tiers are going to be better. The standard and good quality have still the same strength, but are a little bit smaller, and then the excellent quality has a bit better strength now than the previous excellent, but the same size. We heard news from our allies in France that an Ottoman navy is approaching Toulon, so we will be sending our ships towards Toulon to rendezvous with the French fleets there, and hopefully we can strike back at the Ottomans. We have spotted an Ottoman fleet approaching Barcelona, so we'll naturally send our commercial vessels to evade a little bit. We don't want them to be caught by the enemies. But it is very likely that our coastal defenses will be overwhelmed, just like the French were at Toulon. We have now opened fire on the enemy ships, and hopefully we can cause at least a medium amount of damage on them before they destroy our defenses. The fight against the Ottoman fleet is raging on. We have peppered a lot of their ships already, although nothing major damage as far as we can tell. In the meanwhile, we have lost 2/3 of our 8-pounders and about half of our 6-pounders. While majority of our guns are already silent, we shall keep on fighting till the last man. The guns have now fallen silent, and the enemy has proceeded to open fire upon our shipyards. They have won this round. Our support vessels from Havana have now rendezvoused with the raiding fleet of Philadelphia, and once they're done with the refuel, the fleet will head back to Havana for some refueling and repairing and overhauling and all that. We have completed designing the new spy classes, and now we have started searching better ways to unload fuel, or rather rations, from one ship to another. It would appear that the Dutch were trying to set an ambush for us. Luckily we did spot them, and presumably looking at the sizes we spot them before they did spot us, so we can avoid them. But we will have to divert our course a little bit, but there seems to be at least close to 60 ships, maybe more, and that is well more than what our fleet over here can handle. We only have about 20 ships left. And then, of course, we do have a little bit extra in Havana right now, but not enough to fight that fleet, so we'll just try to avoid it. Actually, that means that we'll have to bring the support fleet around that as well, which is going to be a bit trickier. but we'd rather avoid that fleet entirely right now. We completed research on better optics, and now we started designing better crowsness so that we can spot our enemies further away. Judging from the incident in the Caribbean, which we managed to avoid, it's gonna be very useful. Our fleet has now arrived to Havana from Philadelphia, and we started repairs immediately. It will of course take a while to have all the ships repaired, but at least they're now safe and sound back home again. We have now designed the new crowsness for our ships, and we started researching faster research rate. Now, since the current researcher is not specialized in construction and production, it is not going to have a huge bonus. But since we probably don't need to research anything over here for the time being, and that's the highest bonus that we have right now, that's just what it's going to have to be. We have found ways to improve mining efficiency, so now we are searching ways to build faster. And there we have it, that's another year. Now, for us the year was pretty decent. I mean, we did lose some colony ships in the Atlantic due to pirate activity, and we did partake in the raid of Philadelphia, which was great success, although we did lose quite a few ships there. And we did then get the fleet back into Havana, and a few of the ships have already been repaired, but there's about 20 more ships that need repairs there. And we've been gathering up the excess fleets over here, which has been a bit slow. Some of the fleets have run out of fuel, and we've had to send in tankers to actually refuel them and so forth. But all in all, we are gathering up a nice force here in Caribbean again, and should be able to, once we repair, should be able to act at least to some degree. Now, unfortunately, the Ottomans did sack Barcelona a little bit, so there's no shipyards there. And speaking of shipbuilding, we are currently building some ships in Cadiz and one ship in El Ferro. Barcelona was one of very important shipbuilding places for us, and losing that was terrible news for us. In terms of research, we're trying to get the 10-pounders in El Ferro. In Barcelona, we're getting the refueling systems, because we've noticed that refueling a large amount of ships takes a long while. If we can speed that up a little bit, that should be a nice boon. Then, of course, we are trying to get the research rate up, but that's going to take a while. Then construction rate is going to go up, but even that is going to take a while. But we are getting the improved sailing technology, so we should be able to start designing new masts and potentially gunpowder storage. I don't remember if we actually designed those yet or not, but we should be able to start improving our ship a fair bit in the very near future. In terms of resources, as per usual, food is the lowest number over here. It's not great, but it's fairly close to each other, all these numbers, so there's not a huge variance in there. In terms of wealth, we are going to be making a fair bit of money since we've stopped producing maintenance supplies right at the start here, so we'll see the change in next month. But that should drop the maintenance supply cost at least by 1,000, I think. So that's going to give us a fair bit of income, and then of course we'll get 4,400 from the trade deal with the French. So that's going to get us fairly close to, well, it should be around 5,000 in a few months. In terms of industry, we started building some research facilities in Cadiz, and other than that, there's not particularly surprising things here. The colony in Guantanamo Bay has now at least a little bit of capacity, albeit not a huge one, but we are getting the infrastructure there. We'll soon start getting some mining facilities here so that we can start getting a lot of the minerals into Havana. Unfortunately, bronze is one of the things that they don't produce there, so we won't be able to produce any land units, I'm afraid. But all in all, together with these two colonies, we should be able to support most of that. We do have a civilian mining colony over here, and then another one coast of Chile, and actually, no, we don't have any in Cadiz, never mind then. But we have a decent production in most places, but yeah, not huge shipbuilding boom right now, because we can't really build many ships at the moment. We do need to start expanding our naval shipyard next year, that's for sure. In terms of fleet movements, we've been gathering our fleet in Caribbean for the most part, because that is quite a central location over here. We have a little bit of ships in North Atlantic going back and forth, but that is a dangerous area by the looks of it. And then we've been gathering up a lot of our fleets in Cadiz, and we have some ships in Biscay as well. West Mediterranean we have a handful of ships there. They currently joined up with the French because of the Ottoman raid of Barcelona, so they'll be going back and forth between Toulon and Barcelona every few months to let one of the fleets to overhaul. That way they can support each other, and hopefully if they have to fight, then they will be a bit stronger together. We haven't been doing a huge amount of surveying lately. I mean, we started Eastern Mediterranean a little bit, but that seems to be a slightly hostile territory because of the Ottomans declaring war on us. And then of course we've been surveying a lot of North Sea lately, and the North Atlantic's almost surveyed, and then a little bit in America and all that, but not a huge amount of surveying. That is no longer a priority. The war is, however. In terms of shipping lines, we have 2 colony ships and 2 freighters and 1 fuel harvester, so we have a decent economy in there, although the profit that we gain from them is not particularly large yet, but I'm sure that they will expand. We hope to fix our economy in the upcoming years, just so that we can keep our production values up high enough so that we can start rebuilding and expanding our fleet a little bit. And hopefully we can protect Barcelona a little bit at least, and maybe start rebuilding the shipyards there and so forth, just so that we can again start building ships there. We are expanding a naval shipyard that we built in Cadiz, but that's going to take a while before it's usable, but eventually it will be. But that is about it for this episode, so make sure to check out Ben's channel as well. Links are down below in the description, but other than that, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.